All right, guys, give it up for Nathan Buchanan. Yeah. Up next, we got Brandon Burkhart, the president of This Is Texas Freedom Force. Let's give it up for him, guys.
Give him mail.
Appreciate you. Appreciate y'all biting and putting this on. And guys, you guys give yourself a round of applause. You're here on the ground today. Well, like you said, my name is Brandon Burkhart. I'm the president of the nonprofit organization This Is Texas Freedom Force. Guys, you're not going to find us inside your email box. You're not going to find us calling you. You're not going to find us walking around with clipboards getting your names so we can solicit you for donations. Our organization is boots on the ground. Yeah. We take it to the enemy. We take it to the tyrants. If you don't believe me, that Alamo right there stands untouched because 150 of us stood there and defended against 5,000 rioters and looters. I was quick to say that I wanted to come out here and speak today because I'm speaking on behalf of myself as an individual instead of speaking for the organization. That allows me a little bit of leeway. So I wanted to talk to you guys about some things. First of all, I started my path down the road to politics and patriots during the last couple of years of the Bush administration. I started working as precinct chairman because there weren't that many groups like This Is Texas Freedom Force, Open Carry Texas, or Beyond the Mask. There were very, very few small pockets of people that were getting together and organizing, but again, they weren't organized and they certainly weren't energized. In fact, prior to 2008 elections, it seemed as though conservatives had no clue how to rally around a cause. While conservatives had their moments, like opposing Bush's immigration policies, and of course, those who couldn't forget the Bush versus Gore Chads, you didn't find much rallies and organization happening around the country. Then, in 2008, John McCain, which I'm not a big fan of, but he selected Sarah Palin to be his vice president candidate, and suddenly Republican base started doing something that they never had done before. They organized and they showed up. And I'm talking about the Tea Party. Over the years, I heard the same line over and over. The Civil War is coming. Civil War is coming. You better get ready. Better get ready for the Civil War. When I first started hearing this in the early 2000s, to be honest with you, I thought these folks had lost their marbles. Or at least, they were just a little bit too gung-ho and they hadn't quite thought things through. I've always prided myself as being a problem solver, an optimist, but grounded and a realist. There was always a peaceful way to dig ourselves out of the mess that the liberal left and the establishment rhinos had dug for us. So I dismissed the Civil War is about to happen comments and continued to exhaust every peaceful option I knew or I learned of so that we could try to protect our liberties, our life, and our God-given rights. Some of the solutions worked, many of them failed. But the important thing is that I was doing my part as a patriot. Being an active patriot isn't always convenient. Sorry guys, I lost my place in here. Alright, so being an active patriot isn't always convenient and easy. It comes with its ups and downs, its trials and tribulations. But it's doing it, if you're doing it for the right reasons, then it's worth every wrinkle on your face and every gray hair on your head. Guys, the scariest encounter I had during my entire political career was during the Obama administration. I was standing in the middle of Harry Reid's district in Nevada, cocked, clocked, ready to rock, staring across the desert underneath the bridge at the Bureau of Land Management, who looked like a bunch of soldiers ready for Afghanistan instead of a bunch of Bureau of Land Management officers. They had their firearms pointed at us, drones, Black Hawk helicopters were flying over so low you could read the numbers on the bottom. Then there was the federal, state, county law enforcement officers sprinkled all over the area. Media running around trying to get the best shot. It was pure, utter chaos on their part. But I took comfort in the fact that when I looked to my left and I looked to my right, I saw the most skilled and patriotic Marines, Army, Air Force, and Navy veterans I'd ever encountered in my life. I also must mention the hundreds of militias, 3%ers across the country. Mothers, fathers, grandfathers, sons, daughters. Being surrounded by these patriots made my soul swell, and it made my eyes sweat with patriotic pride. When we left Nevada, or when we left to go to Nevada, we expected that to be a one-way trip. Up until then, the government had squashed any civilian uprising that dared challenge their authority. Remember, they killed everyone in Waco and Ruby Ridge. But that year, 2014, we the people won that battle. We the people started to understand the power that we possess. We the people started fighting for our liberty, freedom, and our God-given rights. And I wouldn't trade that 6 weeks in the desert for anything in the world. Sadly today, I do not feel the same as I did back in the early 2000s. I feel that there's a looming civil war on the horizon. It is not yet inevitable, but our toes are right on the edge of that line. We are closer today to a full-blown civil war breaking out than we have been since April 12, 1861. Y'all know what that happened in that day, right? It's the first American Civil War. Now I want you to hear this. All true American patriots must be prepared for the possibility of this battle coming. I'm not talking about stocking up on food and ammo, etc., although you should already be doing that. I'm talking about being mentally prepared, aware of the situation that surrounds you, and have a well thought out plan on how you, your friends, your family, and your patriotic community is going to end up responding to this. This isn't going to be your great-grandfather's Civil War. This war will not be fought like the American Revolution of the Civil War of 1861, where disciplined armies observed the laws of war and respected civilian lives. This war will be waged by the radical left and their deep state puppet masters. For them, civilian casualties and massacres will not be moral evils, but merely part of the parcel of a larger plan to reconstruct America into a socialist or a communist country. You don't have to take my word for it. Just look at how Biden handled Afghanistan. Yep. Since when did we leave Americans behind? Never. But yet, hundreds of thousands were left in Afghanistan. The Biden administration was quick to ride out the media storm for a week or so, how long they covered it. And now, those Americans that are over there in Afghanistan are forgotten about. That's not America. The far left's objective is simple: overthrow our constitutional order, destroy our way of life, and deprive us of our freedoms, deprive us of our means to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government, deprive us of our liberties, deprive us of our property, and our God-given rights and our honor. I spent many years studying countries that have suffered civil war and its horrors, such as Russia, including Chechnya, Syria, Lebanon, Bosnia, and Kosovo. I have also carefully studied the history of revelations and civil conflict. And until recently, I would have never believed that a second civil war in America could be possible. But the warning signs are flashing big and red neon lights. And they began appearing most visibly when Donald J. Trump was elected and became the Republican president. He is the first American politician that struck fear into the hearts of both the deep state and the radical left. And that fear makes them extremely dangerous. The Bolshevik October Revolution of 1917 was carried out by a mere 1,000 people, party members, in St. Petersburg. And it was sudden and unexpected. The Central Committee made up the decision to launch a coup d'etat over hours, and then In fact, as late as July of 1917, Lenin himself did not expect communist revolution in his lifetime. The Russian Civil War that followed is a horrifying story of savage carnage and obscene violence. In similar fashion, I believe one spark for the Second Civil War is likely to happen, and a coup d'etat carried out by the anti-American far-left extremists. It will catch most Americans by surprise. The coup plotters will act quickly to seize the critical levers of power before any opposition has had a chance to react. And they will be aided and abetted by the kinds of people Lenin referred to as useful idiots. The shock troopers will come from the ranks of Antifa and the radical racist elements of Black Lives Matter. The fascist stormtroopers will be augmented by the even larger numbers from the leftist socialist group Occupy movement and other smaller left movements. And jihadists from across the globe will flock to support this coup, most likely entering the United States through the southern border. In fact, I think it's safe to say that most of them have probably already come on over. This makes it extremely dangerous for Texas, but the real power will be behind the scenes in the hands of the bureaucrats and the American deep state, who will see such a far-left coup as their best chance to preserve and expand their reaching powers. Much of the mainstream media will initially be warmly supported. A few so-called conservatives in the media may meekly protest that while the ends of the revolution are laughable, perhaps the means are just a little bit too messy for them. But most of the liberal media will fall lock, stop, in the belief that as long as they are supported, that the coup leaders will allow them to stay in business. Many Americans will believe that their pro-coup propaganda and quietly submit, at least to refrain from overt resistance. The facilities at Harvard, Yale, and Princeton will pass resolutions of fervent support, and their brainwashed students will rush to enlist in this revolution before all the excitement passes. Likewise, left-leaning foundations and oligarchs will promise financial support, and the Federal Reserve will flood the economy with debased currency. Not all Democratic politicians will turn traitor, but there will be some prominent establishment statesmen who will betray our country. They will naively believe that they will be able to control the revolution and turn it into their own purposes. When their fig leaf of respectability is no longer required, they will get the fate that they deserve. But their role will be critical to give coup leaders the guise of the continuality of government while they seize the critical levers of power. America external enemies will not sit by idly either. The new revolutionary government will offer generous terms in return to foreign assistance, meaning the secret police, and troops if necessary. This would come from China and Russia. Expect a treaty of San Antonio whereby Mexico would recover her historic territories of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Southern California. Russia will expect a return of Alaska and all of its oil. China and the European Union will demand that we surrender our economic sovereignty and become vassals of Beijing and Brussels. And of course, the United Nations will offer to send their little blue helmets over here to restore civil obedience. North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, and Iran will also want their spoils in return for their technical support. And what is the agenda of this regime? The first priority is obvious: the confiscation of all privately owned guns, because an armed citizen ready and prepared to defend its rights would be an intolerable threat to that regime. The communist government will then turn to left-leaning family members and friends so that they can come and rat you out, turn you in, so they can seize your firearms, or at least try, because we know most patriots ain't giving them up.
Never.
The next logical step would be identify any and all possible sources of opposition and turning them into their family, interning them and their families into a re-education camp. The third priority will be the radical distribution of property. It will destroy America's free enterprise economy, but short term, it would guarantee the loyal support of all those hoping to get a share of the spoils. If this doesn't scare the hell out of you, then you're not paying attention. I do not wish to be an alarmist. Like I said, I didn't even believe that America really could get into another civil war up until recently. I pray daily that this will not come to pass, and I have dedicated the majority of my life to fight against tyranny. But what I describe here is a plausible scenario, and you are seeing steps being taken by the far left and the deep state to make this a reality. Have no doubt, our nation's enemies are resolute and determined. The continued existence of our great country, the United States of America, will depend on the bravery, the strength, resourcefulness, and patriotism of her most loyal citizens. We must stand prepared for all possible threats. Turn on the news and you are seeing unconstitutional acts happen every day without Americans batting an eye. Joe Biden is frail and lacks the mental capacity to be the president. He's being controlled by the far left. Democrat and rhinos are drunk with power whenever they started with this vaccine passport nonsense and mass control and shutting down our cities. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the far left liberals are trying to bankrupt America and control its citizens with this $3.5 trillion bill that they're talking about. And oh, this bill is not dead. They're just going to pass it in smaller increments until they get to that $3.5 trillion. So don't think that this is dead. This threat's still real. The southern border is wide open and we are being invaded by illegals pouring into Texas and the United States. The far left is literally rolling out the red carpet for this to happen. Democrats are using everything in their power to strike down Texas's heartbeat bill, and their supporters are championing the murders of millions of babies. Oh, but if you haven't heard this, you've had your head in the sand. Right now, America needs its patriots. More importantly, Texas needs its patriots. The days that I'm too busy to attend an event and my life's too important to take the time out to go to the Capitol or go to City Hall to testify for or against a bill, or I don't like such and such from this organization, so I'm not going to help them out. Those days are over. You better get your life right with God. You better shift your ass in gear, and you better check your egos at the door, and you most certainly better start giving a damn, because right now everything that's taking place is going to affect you. The laziness is just an excuse. It's much easier to make some simple sacrifices in your life right now to fight for our liberty, for our freedom, and for our God-given rights than it's going to be if America is hijacked and the far left turns America into communist or a bunch of socialists. And please, don't give me that lazy ass argument that, oh, this is not going to happen in Texas. We're just going to vote to secede from the Union. I'm going to tell you a little bit of secret. Texas ain't going to secede without a civil war taking place and bloodshed on this soil. If you think you can vote your way out of it, you got another thing coming. Texas is America's cash cow. We are number one in oil production in the world, number one in gas production in the world, number 3 in oil production in the world. We have the largest uranium deposit in the United States to make nuclear weapons right here in our great state. Do you think that the United States is just going to just let us walk away? There's going to be a fight. So guys, I'm going to close with this, and I apologize, but this is a subject that it really has got to me. Is that, you know, people are quick to get on Facebook, they're quick to get on Twitter, they're quick to get on any social media account and say, you know, point the finger at somebody else and say, oh, they're not doing any good, or that's not going to make any kind of difference, and this and that. Well, they sit happily in the AC on their couch not doing a goddamn thing. That has to cease. In case you haven't realized, that civil war I'm talking about, it's already happening. All right. This is not your grandfather's Civil War where you're going to get punched in the face or shot right off the bat. They're pulling the strings behind the scenes, and then the bullets are going to start flying down the line. Right now is the time to get involved. And I think, beyond the mask, we're having people, patriots, Texans, come out here today to actually gather and start talking about doing something. This is Texas Freedom Force. We were getting here just a little bit late because we're meeting with several organizations, but we're about to take our happy asses down to the border and work a border out and stop some of this nonsense.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, guys, when we defended the Alamo in 2020 against those 5,000 rioters and looters, we didn't ask permission to do it. We did it.
Yeah.
That's right, just do it. Still Nike's logo or whatever, but the last thing I'm going to say is that, guys, we've got to rally around the people that are actually doing something. Like this man putting this rally on together. This is Texas Freedom Force doing their rallies. Open Carry Texas still fighting for our gun rights. We have got to rally around these. When we show up in numbers, I got 1 minute?
Oh, you're good, dude.
All right. You guys, I know the couple of y'all had it. I was hoping I was going to be the first one to come out here and fly this. Does everybody know what this flag means?
We all feel the
No
same
quarter
way.
given.
This guy said it right here. No quarter shall be given. If back in the Civil War, if you remember, the white flag meant surrender. An all-black American flag means we ain't taking no prisoners. If this Civil War breaks out, they're not going to like what we're going to give them. And God, like I said, I don't want this to happen, but our toes are on the line and we're so close. And so we need to fight now so that we don't have to fight the other way. And so the last thing that I'll say is that if you guys are interested and you're on board with impeaching Biden, this is Texas Freedom Force is having a statewide overpass rally October 30th. Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, as well as possibly Amarillo and El Paso. We are going out there. We're going to have a bridge rally to start sending a message.
Let's go, Brandon.
This ain't on me. I'm just one person. I'm nobody. The organization, our members that are standing out here in the crowd, these guys are the ones that help make this stuff possible. And you're going to hear a lot of this same argument, and I've heard it too. Oh, you don't want to impeach Biden right now because all we're going to get is Harris. And then, oh, you don't want to impeach Harris because then we're going to get Nancy Pelosi. These people are not thinking long term. Do you think the Democrats are going to impeach Biden right now? No. But if we start launching this impeach campaign, get Americans fired up, next November, the Republicans can take the House, the Republicans can take the Senate, and then when they get in there and they have the power, then we apply pressure to them and tell them, impeach that motherfucker. So I hope that you guys can come on out. Again, our website is txfreedomforce.org, or you can find us on MeWe at This is Texas Freedom Force. Just look for the bull and the Texas flag. Thank you very much.
Give it up for Brandon, guys.
Let's give it up for Brandon. Up next, it's a great honor to introduce Dr. Tim Westley. Let's give it up for our folks.
Testing. Hello, patrons. Can y'all hear me? All right. There's a reason I'm here today. We have a battle taking place right here in the United States of America. I want to tell you that about 186 years ago, in a small town known as Gonzales, Texas, there was a battle that took place. With that particular battle, we saw a few men that decided that we're going to stand our ground. Those few men that decided to stand their ground, there was a cannon that was loaned to them. That cannon was loaned to them, and the Mexican army wanted that cannon back. But those few men decided, instead of giving you this cannon back, because it's time for us to stand our ground, we're going to tell you those famous words that's been uttered time and time again. Come and take it. Come and take it. Come and take it. With that being said, I want to point out to you, that would be the beginning of what we know as the Texas Revolution. Texas is the great state that it is today, but it hadn't always been that way. It took some people that we now know as patriots to stand their ground. It wouldn't be long before we would find ourselves in the place that we're standing in now. We have tourists that are here in the Alamo, but there was a battle that took place over 186 years ago. That battle we know as the Battle of the Alamo. I'm standing right here at a place that's known as the cenotaph, the spirit of sacrifice. And there were about 200 defenders that decided that we're going to sacrifice it all for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness before we knew what it was. Those 200 defenders would spark, I just need you to understand, there's a few of us out here today, but all it takes is one match to start a forest fire. I want to remind you all today that all it takes is a few of you to get something great started. Those 200 defenders, they were told, Jim Bowie was told, as I've shared the story before, he was told at a certain point, I need you to go and pass the message that we're going to stand down. But instead of standing down, he realized that San Antonio in Texas was worth fighting for. And because it was worth fighting for, he stood his ground, and all those other defenders stood their ground. Are you willing to do the same? Those 200 defenders, when they stood their ground, I need you to understand that Santa Anna, the Mexican general, when he showed up with the red flag. His troops showed up with the red flag. That red flag that simply signified that no man was going to remain alive. No one was going to remain alive. Why do I bring that up? I bring that up because these 200 defenders knew that at the end of the day, they were going to lay their lives down on the line. And it wasn't about them, but it was about their families. It was about their children. It was about their children's children and future generations. And they decided we're ready to stand up and fight and lay it all on the line. Are you all willing to do the same? I was asked by someone just the other day, I was speaking with a friend, and she said, you know, I've been fighting hard, but I'm about ready to give up. I'm about ready to throw in the towel. I don't know if I can do this any longer. And she asked me a question. She said, Dr. Westley, how do you keep fighting when it seems like everything is against you? Even Republicans seems like they're against you. How do you keep fighting? I told her it's not a how, it's a matter of why, and it's a matter of who. My who is the Almighty above, God. How do I keep fighting, and why do I keep fighting? I told her, I said, look, my life has been great. I've had a wonderful life. My children have experienced some wonderful things in this life, but my grandchildren have yet to see it. As I look around today, there are many people walking around here in San Antonio, Texas. They're walking around with their children and their families, and they're enjoying the beauties of what this city has to offer. But many have no clue as to what battle took place. They have no clue about the bodies that were burned in San Antonio, Texas. They have no clue about the sacrifices that were made. They have no clue that everything that took place in this great city started a spark that started a fire that ignited a nation. And we're going to do the same thing. We have to do the same thing. America's under attack right now. You all may think that it's okay. Everybody's walking around, people enjoying this day, they're enjoying this time, and don't even realize that a battle is taking place. There's a great battle taking place in Austin with our legislators. There's a great battle taking place in Washington, D.C. with our legislators. Whether you're Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're independent, whether you're libertarian, whether you're independent, I want to point out to you today that this battle against all of us, because ultimately, if America that's bound on capitalism, America that's bound on God, America that's bound on our Constitution, if we don't defend those things, we're going to end up with socialism and not an America. How does it happen? I want to explain to you how it happened. With Chavez over in Venezuela, that country was thriving. It had money. They thought that they were doing well. Chavez took over, and the first thing that Chavez went after, the first thing he went after when he was elected and in charge of Venezuela, he went after their constitution. Do y'all hear me? He went after their Constitution. Why do I bring this up? The moment that he went after the Constitution, he knew after I take the Constitution, I'm going after the courts. And he went after the Supreme Courts. And when he went after those Supreme Courts, he decided to pack those Supreme Courts. If he packed the Supreme Courts, destroy the Constitution, packed the Supreme Courts, next thing he went after the personal property of people. Went after their property. And he continued after going after property. He wanted to make sure that the government was in charge of all businesses, including the media, so that you'll end up with government-run media. Are we seeing that in the United States today?
Yes, sir.
Are we seeing an attack on our Constitution today?
Yes, sir.
Rights that we have. We the people. I need you all to shout with me. We the people.
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 It's about we the people. We run the government. The government does not run us. We have to have this mindset. We're sending people to Austin. We're sending them here in our city council. We're sending them to Washington. And we've lost sight of the fact that the government and those people that we elect, they work for us. We do not work for them. It's time for us. Yes, that's all right. Go ahead and cheer for that. It's time for us, patriots. It's time for us to take America back. I was just talking to my brother-in-law and my sister just about 2 nights ago. And I was speaking to him and I told them how all it's going to take is just a few in order to ignite the masses. All it takes is just a couple of you. I'm talking about you patriots that really believe in Texas. You patriots that really believe in America. You patriots that really believe in freedom. You patriots that really believe in the future of this nation. All it takes is a few of you to say, I'm registered to vote. Let me become a voter registrar so I can get others to register to vote. Let me get those votes together. Let's begin to send true patriots to Austin. Let's begin to get true patriots in San Antonio. Let's get true patriots in Washington. And let's start a movement to take America back. Can be done, and it will be done. But it won't be done if you sit on the sideline. It won't be done if you assume that you're not big enough. It won't be done if you assume that it's not enough of us. I need you to understand that David went into a battle. As David went into the battle, David went to King Saul. And as he spoke to King Saul, the king looked at him and said, you're but a child. You're not going to be able to go into battle against this warrior. But David looked back on what he had gone through. And David spoke to the king and he said, you know, I went into battle before, and I'm paraphrasing what the word said. Went into battle before, fought against the lion and the bear, and ultimately I was successful because God was with me. And because of that, he said, this Philistine will be nothing compared to my God that's going to be walking with me. How many of y'all know God is still with us? Yeah! America was found on faith principles. If it were not for the Almighty, if it were not for God, if it were not for faith, America would not have become the America that we've grown to love today. So I challenge you all as you all leave here, make sure that if you hadn't done so, read the Constitution. Understand your constitutional rights and privileges. If you hadn't done so in a long time, find that Bible that Grandma gave you. Dust it off and begin to read it. I need you to understand we're going to have to be people of action. I want to close you out with a few things. A few things. How do we get there? It's one thing for me to give you information, but it's another thing for me to give you a plan. The first thing we're going to have to do, we're going to have to pray. This nation needs prayer. This nation needs prayer. Before any great undertaking, we must pray. Once we pray, we must unite. Right now, I'm afraid to tell you that we're not the United States of America. We may be by name, but we're not by deed. It's time for us to unite, and I'm not just talking about Republicans, whoever and whatever label you may go up under, you must unite under the label of believer, under the label of Christian, under the label of a child of God. Once we unite, then everything else starts to come into focus. I hope you understand. All right, that's all right to cheer for. And finally, after we unite, we pray, we unite, and then we act. Too many of us talk about things, but we're not doing anything. It's time for us to act, because I don't know about you, but I believe that not only tomorrow, but years to come. I want my children and my children's children and their children to be able to understand how America is, not just how America was. I want them to understand that the America that we live in has become greater because a few patriots on this day in October, decided that we're going to stand up. We're not going to stand by, but we're going to stand up. And I'm calling on you patriots right now to stand up. You need to stand up right now while you have an opportunity. The children can't speak, they can't fight, but we can. And I need you all to say, not on my watch. Not on my watch. It's time to take America back. And I want you all to shout that with me as I close. Take America back. God bless you, patriots.